Hello, my name is 𝐂𝐻𝐬𝐬, and the theme of today's lecture, or should I say the motif of today's lecture, is distraction. The idea of distraction isn't just random. Very often you would see a position where you could play a classy maneuver or implement some sort of tactical strike. However, you can't do so because your opponent just happens to have that one piece that is in your way. So, in this lecture, we will look at examples of how to distract a defender so that you can either gain a material advantage by capturing the piece that the opponent was defending previously, or gain a more significant advantage. As a rule of thumb, the distraction motif is seen more often in open positions, so closer towards late game or just generally open positions. In the previous lecture, we looked at annihilation of defense, where you have to destroy the defender. So in this motif, you just have to distract the defender. So how are we gonna distract? Let's look at this position. Most of you already figured it out. It's not a hard one. However, if you wish, you can pause the video and give it a minute. I'm sure it'll come to you. So in this position, of course, white cannot move the queen away because it's pinned by the black queen. One option is to just exchange the queens, but that's not really advantageous at this stage. So, what can white do in order to get a material advantage in this position? Let's say white plays rook to e7, check. Now, if king takes on e7, then white queen will take on e5, check, and white is winning, as you can see. Let's go back. So, after rook takes on e7, the black king can, of course, move away, but thinking he's still defending the black queen. However, that's not the case in this position, because now there's just two attackers on the black queen, and we'll just take the queen, check, and thank you very much. Black gets no compensation for losing his queen. And as we always do, let us look at this position from black's point of view. Let's say we get to this situation in game and it's black's move now. The situation is very symmetrical, so I'm not going to go explaining it all over again, but it's basically the same mechanics. The black king is pinned, so he cannot move away, and taking the black queen would just mean we're equal again. So we want to gain a material advantage, and to do that, we need to move our rook to e2, check, and if king takes, queen takes on e4, check, and black is winning. Obviously, the same principle. King can move away instead of taking the rook, but then white just loses the queen with no compensation. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great day, and just remember, practice makes perfect. Hello, my name is Mark, and in this lecture we will continue the motif of distraction. So, white to move in this position. If you wish, you can pause the video and find the winning move. First thing to notice is that the black king is trapped. Second, it seems like white has 3 attackers onto this a7 pawn, and black only has the 2 defenders, the bishop and the king. Therefore, it is possible for white to take this pawn. So what will happen if knight takes this pawn on a7. Worst case scenario, black loses a rook, and that happens if bishop takes on a7, rook takes on a7 check, king to b8, then rook to a8 check, king to c7, and rook takes rook on f8. And black is losing a rook. However, in this position, black has stronger moves than to take the knight on a7. One of them is b6. Simple. And that frees up the space for the black king to move away. So in the case now, if the knight jumps away with rook check to the king, then the black king will just jump away, and it seems more difficult to continue an attack here. So, what is the winning move? I'll give you a quick hint, and that the motif that we are following this lecture is distraction. And in light of this, the winning move is knight to c7. Let's have a look. If bishop takes on c7, then rook takes on a7 check, and after king moves away to b8, rook to a8 checkmate. And as you can see, we have distracted the black bishop from defending this pawn on a7. Also, by distracting the black bishop and making a move to this square c7, we are basically creating a wall for the black king, so he won't be able to escape. Okay, so now let's look at this position from black's point of view. If it's black's turn to move now, can you find the winning move? If you wish, you may pause the video. Okay, so the winning move is knight takes on g4 check. And after bishop takes on g4, rook to f2 check. And after king to h3, rook to h1 checkmate. So, okay, let's go back. What if bishop doesn't take on g4 after knight takes the pawn on g4? What if the king moves away, let's say to g2? Then rook to f2 checkmate straight away. Okay, let's look at the significance of this move. So knight to g4, even though in some ways I would say this is more decoying than distraction, however, it still frees up the space for the black rook on f8 to join in on the attack. And why I consider this distraction in some way is that after bishop does take the knight on g4 and black rook joins in and goes to f2 and checks the king, and king goes to h3, and then finally rook mates the king on h1, if the white bishop wasn't here, then the white king would have a place to escape. However, that's not the case. And another thing I wanted to point out is that this is why the move knight takes a7 is very flawed, because then you're just passing on the initiative to black, who then just plays his killer move. Knight takes on g4, and as we've already seen, this is mate. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great day, and just remember, practice makes perfect. Hello there, Mark here. I'm really glad you made it to this video, and this is the third lecture on the theme of distraction. So let's look at this position over here. Let us have a look at what white is threatening to do. So the white knight on h5 is staring down the pawn on g7. And so is the queen on g5. The problem is there is a defender, the queen on d7. So potentially, if this queen was gone, checkmate on g7. Okay. So, what's next? What else can we see? We can see that the white queen is pinning the pawn on g7. So this opens up another window that the knight on h5 can potentially jump to f6. And when he gets here, he's going to be forking the king and the queen. The problem, of course, is at the moment, if he jumps to f6, the rook will just take the knight. Easy peasy. So, we want to either take this pawn with the queen or move here with the knight. The queen is preventing us from taking the pawn on g7, and the rook is preventing us from moving to f6 with the knight. So, what is the logical conclusion? We need to try and distract one of these pieces. Okay, so how can we do that in the most efficient way possible? Rook from c1 takes bishop on c8. Basically, we just won a free piece. What happens if queen takes the rook on c8? Queen takes the pawn on g7, checkmate. If rook takes on c8, the knight jumps to f6, forking the king and the queen for a royal fork. And obviously after the king moves somewhere, the knight takes the queen. Happy days. So, how to see this move? You basically got to look at the various tactical strikes that white has, like classy combinations, like having your knight over here. Obviously, that wins you the queen, which wins you the game. But, you need to distract this rook. Or you could see that, hold on a second, I really want to checkmate the black king over here with my queen. But the problem is, the black queen is defending that pawn. So, maybe I can distract the black queen. And that's how you should be sort of thinking. Okay, so now let's look at the same position, but from black's point of view. If it was black's turn to move, can you find the winning move? So let's analyze this position. First thing that you should straight away notice and put in the back of your head is that the bishops are different colors. And it just so happens that we possess the white squared bishop, and the white king is on the white square. Next, and most importantly, is that the black king is trapped. He has no squares that he can move to. So our priority should be to try and check him, which most likely will result in a mate. So those two facts combined give me an idea that I might be able to move my bishop here to be able to check the black king here. But how to do so when the pawn on g2 is in the way? We need to try and distract it. So if we play something like queen takes on h3 check, white has no other option but to take with pawn on g2. And after that, bishop check, and white can only delay the inevitable. Checkmate. Okay, to understand what motif should be used in which situation, you have to analyze the position on the chessboard. So you got to look at basically four things. There's more to it, but these are the basics. You got to look at what is threatening your pieces, what is defending your pieces. Next, you got to look at which of your pieces are threatening your opponent. You also got to look at which pieces your opponent possesses that defend the pieces that you want to attack or capture. Thank you very much for joining me on today's lectures, and I hope you liked the motif of distraction. In the next lecture, I'll show you how this motif of distraction is used by a real grandmaster in a pro game. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Have a great day, and just remember, practice makes perfect. Hey there, my name is 𝐂𝐴𝐬𝐬, and in today's tutorial, I would like to show you a game played between 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐬 and Jan Timman. It was played in the capital of Macedonia in Skopje in 1972. I'm really excited to show you this game because 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐬 is one of my favorite chess players of all time. And I hope you enjoy this demonstration of how chess grandmasters use the motif of distraction. Okay, so let's jump into it. 𝐡𝐞𝐬 has white pieces and opens with knight to f3. Timman plays g6, e4, d6, d4, knight to f6, knight to b2, knight from b to d2, bishop to g7, bishop to c4, black castles kingside, queen to e2, c6, bishop to b3, bishop to g4, pinning the knight. In this position, the most common move for white is to castle kingside. However, 𝐶𝐻 is not about the common moves. 𝐶𝐻 plays e5, d takes on e5, d takes on e5, and then knight to d5. Now 𝐶𝐻 castles kingside, knight to d7, h3, attacking the bishop, bishop to f5, rook to e1, queen to c7, knight to f1, rook from a to d8, and knight to g3. Okay, notice that for the past 6 moves, black has been trying to position his pieces around the center of the board, either attacking it or position the pieces directly there, and this is what a positional chess player does. However, 𝐂𝐡𝐞𝐬 is all about tactical strikes and winning chess maneuvers. And while black was trying to reposition his pieces around the center, 𝐂𝐡𝐬 had a plan. And by removing the rook out, that allowed the knight to jump to f1 and now reposition to g3, which is a very active position for the white knight. Anyhow, that was just a side note. So, after 𝐶𝐻 plays knight to g3, Timman replies with bishop to e6, queen to e4, rook from f to e8, queen to h4, f6, bishop to h6. Now, if Timman takes and then 𝐶𝐻 takes, this would create weakness around the black king on the black squares. So taking the bishop on h6 isn't beneficial for black. So Timman decides to play knight takes on e5. A better move in this position would be knight to c5, but we won't go into that right now and just analyze the game as it was played by the grandmasters. So knight takes on e5 was played, and this is the critical moment of this game. And if you wish, you may pause this video and try find the winning move. Just remember, the theme of this tutorial is distraction. So, have you found the winning move? Do you know which piece you need to distract? Okay, so the piece that needs to be distracted is pawn on f6, and the winning move is rook takes knight on e5. After that, f takes on e5, knight to g5. Timman responds with bishop to f6, pinning the knight, and now knight takes on e6, and in this position, black resigned. One possible variation would be to take the queen on h4. However, white takes the queen on c7, and now black cannot take the knight on c7 because the knight is pinned and the white knight is attacking the rook on e8, and the white bishop is controlling the square f8. In this variation, white gains back the material equality. However, the position that white pieces are in is much better. So let's go back to this move, knight to g5. What if Timman decided to play a move like queen to c8? Then bishop takes on g7, and after king takes on g7, queen to h7 check, king to f6, and knight from g5 to e4 checkmate. What a game. So, did you find the winning move, rook takes on e5? Did you figure out which piece had to be distracted? Well done if you did. I hope you enjoyed the analysis of this game. Not only does it demonstrate how a grandmaster of chess like Mikhail Tal uses the motif of distraction, but also shows you the difference between a positional and a tactical player.